Today it's all about clarifying the convention center debacle, or centers, since there's technically two, the ASU project and the Keller project. Three big questions I want to talk about today. Why did the mayor suddenly pull support? I'm not going to give you an answer to that. I'm going to present evidence because there is basically, there are two cases. There are cases to be made on each side. One of the cases, basically from the mayor's side, is that there was enough competition and it was a difficult decision. The other side says it wasn't a difficult decision. He was helping his friends. You will be the person that decides if either of those have merit or none of them do, because I'm just going to present the details of the facts that we've learned here. Another question we want to tackle is, would Jonesboro have a convention center by now, if not for this? I don't know why that's not asked by reporters in this area. Actually, I do know, but nonetheless, I'm going to ask this question to Gary Harpole and give you his answer, the person that was the campaign manager for Harold Perrin that owned part of the Keller project. And he gave me an answer to that, by the way. It's going to surprise you. Also, would local contractors be stiffed on a bill for $1.5 million if not for this? And we may not be able to get answers on that one. But we're going to try to make sense of all of this as we begin today on NEA Report. Although progress is part of the city of Jonesboro's seal, progress was set back after the mayor supported a convention center project attached to his campaign manager, partly owned by a campaign donor, and now the campaign manager too. Whenever the mayor decided, public emails show, that he pulled his support from Arkansas State University's Convention Center project. And those connections have not been revealed to the public, or at least much of the public, but instead surfaced gradually through depositions and recent legal battles over unpaid debts to contractors. The excerpts filed in June from depositions taken last December revealed the new information as first reported in the June 28 edition of the Jonesboro Sun, giving them full credit. That's the first location I have seen this connection published, but it was buried on page 2 at the end of the article. Northern Arkansas Hotel and Convention Center, LLC, is the company behind the Jonesboro Convention Center and Hyatt Place Hotel, or what was planned to be that, the one that was going to be at 2112 Browns Lane Access Road, right? Let's show you a photo of what that looks like today. And there it is, the location on Browns Lane, where we should have seen more, at least construction, of the Hyatt Hotel and Convention Center by now, except we are not. All we are seeing is grass, and even the sign that had been placed in the location promoting the future convention center has now been since removed. More on that coming up in just a short time. The location, the LLC, the Northern Arkansas Hotel and Convention Center, is 85% owned by the Keller family's owned Oak Tree Management Services of Illinois. So 85% of that, the Kellers. 5% owned by somebody named David Mastio. We're all still wondering who he is, if anybody knows out there. But the last 10% is what we want to talk about today. It's the last 10% that is owned by Centerline LLC. That is a partnership between Carol Caldwell, Jerry Halsey, Roddy Thrasher, and Gary Harpole, according to the Jonesboro Sun. Two of the names that I just mentioned are of interest. Gary Harpole is the former city operations director who was also Mayor Harold Perrin's former campaign manager. He is presently the managing partner of Halsey Thrasher Harpole Real Estate. Caldwell, a campaign donor to Perrin's 2016 re-election campaign, according to Region 8 News, who reported that he contributed $1,000 in 2016 to Perrin's campaign. He presently works as a realtor for Coldwell Banker Village Communities, and that may be of note simply because if you take a look at the screen, well, you can actually see he is the listing agent for the property, although you can barely see it because the sign's faded and it's behind some grass and a bush. I've been writing this article over the past week, I want to point out, and we did reach out on Monday to Gary Harpole for comment, but did not receive response, at least as of when we published this. He did contact us after the fact, and we're going to now mesh in what he's told us since then with what we continue to cover here. We reached out to Caldwell, left a message. He's not returned that, and we also reached out to Jonesboro Mayor Harold Perrin through his spokesperson, Bill Campbell, who said the connections would not have played a role in Perrin's judgment. He actually said ASU was the first to endorse the Keller project. They later decided they needed, in parentheses, wanted one on campus. He wrote in an email that it was a, quote, Tim Hudson thing. Late last night, I did receive a statement from former campaign manager for Harold Perrin, Gary Harpole, the man who I mentioned owned part of Centerline, which then owned part of the convention center that Perrin backed. He sent along a clarification saying that he only owned a third of 1% based on what he owns in his equity of Centerline. He also mentioned what would be a bit of a clarification. He said that he did not have actual ownership in the LLC structure until January of this year. He said, I have been spokespeople for Centerline since its inception, and he went on to mention that he's not trying to separate himself from the efforts to try to make this project a reality. In other words, he was attached to this project from the beginning by his own words. He just did not attain official ownership until this year. But when I asked him if he thought that he was going to have ownership, even from the beginning, he said it was always one of his goals. The whole debacle began, according to a report by Hunter Field at The Sun, by the way, one of the greatest journalists to ever come through this town. It began detailing the A-State's efforts in support of the Keller project, at least initially. Just like Bill Campbell said in his statement, A-State did support the Keller project, but A-State did the diligence on the Keller project and figured out, well, it stunk, and something was wrong with it. And they ended up being right, based on what we know now. Anyway, Keller approached Perrin, it said in Hunter's report, in 2013 to build on the land owned by the city, but he couldn't meet the deadline to secure funding. He also failed to secure funding on the A-State project, leading the university to move forward with O'Reilly's project instead. Campbell did not make mention of Perrin pledging support for A-State's project at an August 3rd, 2015 meeting in Little Rock at the system office. It was a meeting that happened with O'Reilly, members of Arkansas State, and Perrin. They all traveled to Little Rock and believed, at least, that they were working together on a convention center for Arkansas State. Because of a press release that came out 3 weeks later, their jaws hit the ground when they learned that that was not the case. 3 weeks later, a press release from the city, again, city letterhead and everything, surprised many by announcing the Keller Group suddenly had secured funding for their project. And Mayor Harold Perrin wrote in that that he was proud of that moment for them. It was mentioned First Community Bank was financing the project, is what it said. And he then wrote in an email to then Chancellor Hudson, that the city would only be supporting the Keller project, known today as the project partially owned by his campaign manager and campaign donor. Hudson was shocked and responded, "Are you saying that you will not follow through with providing assistance to Arkansas State regarding our plans to locate a hotel and conference center on campus, as you have indicated in our various meetings, most recently at the ASU System Office in Little Rock with Tim O'Reilly, Mark Young, Chamber of Commerce, and others?" That was an email that was submitted, Freedom of Information Act obtained that email. And he said, "I'm sure I've misunderstood your meaning, as we've been accommodating in your timing and task our staff at your request in order to provide you with information so that we could finalize potential investments and our," and it says in subquotes, "approvals." Perrin told The Sun on October 8th, 2015, he was not trying to play favorites. He said he only decided to support the Keller deal because they had secured financing from First Community Bank while A-State was still working on their project's funding. This incensed university officials. O'Reilly himself was incensed. Some serious statements were issued all around this time, which we could go into forever, and we would be here forever. The whole point of this is to try to tunicate this so that you can understand it to the easiest degree. good grief, I've spent a week trying to get it to the point where I understand it enough to explain it like this. A-State was mad about this. They weren't the only ones, but they were not happy about this. The financing, meanwhile, that was secured for First Community Bank was of interest. What was financed, per a June 28th report by The Sun, was Centerline's land transaction with the Kellers. Centerline, the company that is and was connected to the campaign manager, and that is owned now partially by the campaign manager, and was probably thought to be moving that direction back then too. The company that was, at the time, owned by a campaign contributor to Harold Perrin. Got that clear. The 10% ownership stake, according to what Harpo told The Sun, was acquired for a check for $1 million and a donation of additional acreage along the frontage road. I wonder if that's the acreage that is currently listed for sale. I don't know. That's me asking. The mayor's spokesman said this never played a role in the mayor's decision. He said, quote, as far as Harpole, I'm sure the mayor knew both players in the project, the players in both projects, to be accurate. He said, I'm equally sure the mayor didn't give a damn. He doesn't get involved in that stuff now as much as people want to believe he does. That's what Bill Campbell said. CEO Tim O'Reilly issued a pointed statement in 2016 when the project had been given the back seat to the Keller project. His statement, I'm going to show you that right there. It says it was unfortunate that both that there appears to be a political competition of sorts regarding our project and another convention center project that has been attempted for many years, and that there's definitely not a market or opportunity to succeed for two convention centers in Jonesboro. Do you remember how all that debate was, can Jonesboro support two? That was really because people were afraid to say, is this going to work, or are we fixing to screw the pooch on both of them? And the answer was the latter, right? Jonesboro can't support two convention centers. If we put two in, we're probably going to kill them both. It says, and that's Stan, by the way, that's not Mr. O'Reilly. Back to Mr. O'Reilly. However, we have great faith in our partnership with A-State, which when combined with the outpouring of support from many facets of the Jonesboro business and medical communities, the powerful Hilton Embassy booking and global marketing and sales engine, and our team's experience and past success of this type of project, and we will press forward without hesitation, and we will persevere and succeed in this market, just as they appear to be doing today. Again, I know that retrospect and hindsight are 20/20, but I'm saying this because look who said what was going on then, and look who was right then, and look who was wrong. It's important to examine that when we examine who decided to break away from others and go their own way, and then have to reverse course. Despite the constant setbacks of the Hyatt deal, the Keller deal, even with city backing, the O'Reilly ASU project has persevered into being the city's only viable option. The 7-story, 203-room Embassy Suites Hotel is under construction, along with the Red Wolf Regional Convention Center on the Arkansas State University campus. Work began in mid-February. The project expected to be finished in time to be open in 2019, and they announced their first hire this week. It's a joint venture between A-State and O'Reilly Hospitality Management in Springfield. See, O'Reilly was initially asking for promotional funding from the Jonesboro Advertising and Promotion Commission. They were denied that. Of course, this all took place a few months after the mayor's support for the Keller project, and A&P Commission members do serve at the mayor's discretion. I'm just pointing out facts. They were denied approval for their funding, and within seconds, the Kellers had their approval too. Within a short time of that all happening, that's March 2016 now, the Jonesboro Regional Chamber of Commerce said, we're done with the A&P Commission, and they ended their relationship with it. What does that tell you? Does that tell you that the A&P Commission was making a decision based on an equal competitor? Or is it kind of like a Jedi Master versus a Padawan learner? They both got lightsabers, but you're only going to be picking one in a fight if you know what you're talking about. It's an argument that you got to consider, but when the A&P Commission walks away and you've got the State University coming out with pretty, at least coming with heated emails that we're finding to the mayor, you have to ask yourself these questions. Campbell claimed on Thursday, when we talked to him yesterday, that the O'Reilly Group had asked for an astonishing sum of $1 million a year for 20 years. That was one of the reasons why he felt that they had not got the funding, while Keller only asked for $200,000. Now, I want to point out, Bill Campbell mentioned he was not with the city during much of this process, but the numbers he provided me were just flat out incorrect. And I had to research that for about 2 hours, so it's impossible for me to sit here and tell you otherwise, because I was given bad information there. Don't know if it was intentional, but that's what happened. Michael Wilkie reported that the amounts ranged for the request were $150,000 for the first year, $170 for year 2, $200 year 3. That, just in math off the top of my head, less than $600,000. The Keller Group asked for $300,000 over 3 years, the $200,000 cap on hotel tax abatement. Yes, what the O'Reillys asked for was more. However, the O'Reillys were building more. They were building a larger convention center, many more rooms to it. And I want to point one other thing out. For those of you who've ever had a contractor come over and do some work, if you always go with the cheapest versus going with the guy that's the next most expensive, you sometimes suffer quality for that. Maybe the project doesn't actually get started because the folks were a little too hopeful. Just a maybe there. The city made that decision. The mayor supported the Keller project. He pulled support from the ASU project, and the Keller request was approved by a vote of 3-2, while the O'Reilly request, ASU's request, voted down by 3-2. An audible gasp in the room could be heard at the vote. The city was forced to change course when it became apparent financial concerns expressed by A-State were correct. Because in November of 2017, with contractors being owed a lot of money and it not getting any better, the A&P Commission agreed. Number one, they pulled funding from the Keller project. Keller gave the money back. I don't think he gave the interest back that he drew on the money during its time in a bank account, and I don't know what that would be, but a couple of $100,000, the interest on that, if it's a few $100, I think our city should have it back in there, not in Keller's pocket. Nonetheless, the commission pulled funding from Keller, and they agreed to fund O'Reilly's group. They gave them some terms and such for doing that, clearly having learned a lesson, right? And in a definite departure from the way things had sounded the year before, O'Reilly thanked the mayor and the commissioners for their support, even though he also said the words twists and turns. Very kind of him to leave it at that. Because $1.4 million is owed by the Keller Group to their convention centers contractors, or their projects contractors, I should say, because there's not going to be a convention center there. Many of those contractors are local businesses: Keg Construction of Paragould, Mid-South Steel, Inc. of Jonesboro. I mean, there's going to be a hearing on this on July 27th, 14 days from now. And with almost $1.5 million being owed, we come back to the questions of, and as we look at this photo here, of what is going to be constructed, we have to ask ourselves about why did this plan get derailed? And is it strange that it did for a project completely connected to Harold Perrin's close, either friends or associates? Because that's what happened. Harpole sent us this comment along late Thursday and early Friday morning. Our emails were exchanged along the midnight timeline there. And he said that while he could not speak for Keller in regards to the local contractors who are still waiting to be paid, he has been assured that Keller's working very hard to clean up the obligations and move forward with whatever development opportunities will be available on his site. Whatever development opportunities that will be available on his site. He says, I remain optimistic he will be able to do that very soon. I bring this up out of interest because that the site itself has a for sale sign on it. We showed you that a moment ago. The for sale sign by Coldwell Banker Village Communities that is listed under Carol Caldwell. I asked Harpole about that, and he said that only a certain section was for sale, but what was Keller's was still not for sale and still being worked on for future development. In other words, there's been some kind of a change, it would seem, in the split of things in that spot. At the same time, we asked Mr. Harpole a few other questions as well. We also asked him, would Jonesboro have a convention center by now if not for this? The question specifically was, if Mr. Perrin had not pulled his support, if we had the city, if the city had still backed O'Reilly's convention center and never pulled away from that, would we have a convention center by now? Harpole acquiesced that it was certainly possible. He said once Mr. O'Reilly came out of the ground, they seemed to be moving quickly. We need a convention center, and so I'm looking forward to them getting it completed and open. I asked, was there any favoritism, even on accident? And it was a pretty long question I asked. I tried to make it carefully worded to where even if there wasn't an intentional bit of favor offered, could there have been favoritism? Harpole said there was no attempt to leverage for any unfair advantage. It was obviously a competitive situation. He said both projects had unique attributes that lent themselves to strong cases being made for each site. That's what he said. Regional Chamber of Commerce, they maybe not agree. But in reality, he said the mayor had relationships on every side. He was a former ASU trustee, and I've known him to be a longtime supporter of ASU. He has connections to the university that go back decades. He said, I never envied the position he was in, and in my opinion, all that the mayor ever wanted was to deliver on his commitment to bringing a hotel and convention center to Jonesboro. But he also admitted hindsight is always clearer. But had any of us in our project, he said, known that the primary investor in Mr. Keller's project was not going to be able to fulfill his commitment, we would have pulled it from consideration. And I believe that to be true of Mr. Keller himself. Chuck had far too much respect for himself, our community, and the mayor to have let this intentionally play out as it has. But we have to ask ourselves this question. If that's the case, and if it really is true that all of these players had that level of pride and care and concern for our city, why didn't you listen to the people telling you this was not going to work when they were telling you this was not going to work? I'm talking about Arkansas State. They're only responsible for, education. So you would think they're going to be pretty smart people there. I'm not trying to make the case that, of the bigly brain, very stable genius type of allegories or rhetoric. But what I am saying is, if the state university does diligence on a project and they say this is not going to work, to go against that is a heck of a risk, and you better be right. Right? And so, nonetheless. Last question, would local contractors be stiffed on a bill for $1.5 million if not for this? We already have our answer to that from what Mr. Harpole sent along to us. He mentioned, in regards to those local contractors, he is being assured that they're the top priority, at least, to be cleaned up and paid off and taken care of. Hopefully that takes place very soon. Hopefully whatever issues don't end up in a bankruptcy court, right? Because if the Kellers do that and leave all these folks on the hook and these liens stay on this section of Keller's land that is not being sold, then it could cause more economic harm to this area. Again, I mentioned several local construction businesses. It's hard to make a business these days. And it's really hard when you can't get people to pay your bills. I know that one from experience. But we appreciate the campaign manager for getting back in touch with us. And we appreciate all of those who worked with us to help get this story told. It certainly took us several days of work, and we're probably going to have to go back and revisit it again. Because more information and more details are still coming forth and still flowing forth. But I do want to mention, I got a letter from Gary Harpole's attorney, and it confirmed, according to his attorney, that his purchase of the land was completed in January of 2018. So, in all fairness, he did not own that portion during the time the mayor withdrew. He was connected to it. He was involved with it, and he did hope to attain ownership in that. We don't know to what degree he thought he might be able to, but clearly he was involved from the beginning, as donors were of Mayor Harold Perrins as well.
Haley Norris, Realtor.
No.
Should I make my hair go like this? Whether you need to buy, sell, or lease. Haley, can I use my hands? Or is
Yeah.
that, where are my hands? Where do they go?
Just say-
Haley.
Just like Haley.
Whether you need my expertise. Haley Norris Realtor. Or even do a commercial lease. Haley Norris Realtor. Should I say Remax Real Estate Center or no? Is that too salesy?
No, that's good.
My average days on market is just 50 days. You need my expertise. And that means I'm putting more money back in your pocket.
I wish I could give you better news, but unfortunately your New Wave wireless forecast is not looking good. At least temperature-wise, as a heat advisory is in effect right now for us until 8 p.m. tonight. It's probably going to happen, over the weekend too. Most likely going to see another heat advisory tomorrow as the temperatures are set to be hot for the next few days. It's tonight that we're going to see a low of 76 degrees with partly cloudy skies. Slight chance for showers and thunderstorms tomorrow with a high around 95 and a heat index over 105. Tomorrow night, maybe some showers, probably not. Sunday, maybe some showers, probably not most of the day, 30% chance at least, with a high around 95. Again, it's going to suck. On Monday, 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms, partly sunny with a high near 94. Tuesday, 30% chance of showers and thunderstorms, partly sunny, and a high around 93. So you got chances for rainfall to fall. The biggest chance is going to be on Monday, and Monday night, there's actually a 50% chance of that to happen. The good news I'm going to throw at you out of all of this is that after Tuesday, when we're into Wednesday and Thursday, the highs are only around the 90s. We still got rain chances, though, so that's going to mean the humidity is going to be nasty. Overcast skies in Jonesboro with 91 degrees on the Jonesboro Municipal Airport's current conditions list. Your forecast brought to you by New Wave Wireless, home of the $49 iPhone screen repair. Big announcement yesterday in Jonesboro. One of my all-time favorite songs, by the way, is Walking on the Sun by Smash Mouth. I don't know why, but I love this part of the song. Listen. I know my video is going to get copyright flagged for this now, but whatever. It's worth it to tell you about it. Fuel is coming to town along with Smash Mouth. That's going to headline the Downtown Jonesboro Barbecue Festival this year. It is going to be a ton of fun. It's a 2-night event this year. Fuel, if you haven't heard of them, then where you been? They've been in Jonesboro, performed at the Convocation Center before, right? I was there. I saw them. I got the shirt to prove it. They can sing songs like one of my favorites by them is Hemorrhage, In My Hands, and other songs too. They are one of the best rock bands around, and it's the original Fuel. They just got back together, the original group, and you're going to see the original band playing here. In addition to that, Smash Mouth is going to be playing as well, whether you know them from their song All Star, or Can't Get Enough of You Baby, or maybe the Monkees' I'm a Believer, or the song that I'm playing the instrumental to right now, Walking on the Sun. They have been around for a long time. In fact, don't know if you realize this or not, but Ben Stiller is in their All-Star video, which is weird to me to think about that, you know. Also taking the stage on Saturday, in addition to Smash Mouth, will be the Whitecaps, a progressive rock band from Gulf Shores, Alabama. 3 powerhouse musicians, it says, have created industry buzz with their sound compared to Creed and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's going to be a lot of fun, the Downtown Jonesboro Barbecue Festival, and it will include, of course, barbecue, because it's gonna. That's at the end of September we're talking about. The Kansas City Barbecue Society sanctioned Arkansas State Championship will be hosted, and they're going to have some major prizes, over $10,000 in cash and prizes to be given away. The second annual State Cook-Off Association will also take place. The Jonesboro event, one of over 180 throughout the world, including new events in, it says, Austria, Canada, Mexico, Bilderwald, and Switzerland. And it's going to be a lot of fun with a ton of stuff out there for the kids, sponsored by Hijinks. There's going to be food vendors, crafts, and fun. As I mentioned, this is the Downtown Jonesboro Barbecue Festival. It's going to take place Saturday, September 29th, and Friday night, September 28th. Why did I read those dates backwards? I don't know, but I did. It's going to be a blast, though. We're going to be part of this event with them and help them promote this. And I want all of you to be able to get out there and check it out, too. If you go to NEAreport.com, our community page has all the deets All the deets are up there. Busy week, folks. Busy week. CBS News called yesterday, and they're interested in the Walnut Ridge Police Department railroad worker story, so we've been swamped as of late. Of course, if you didn't know, we were in the Washington Post this week highlighting our work here on NEA Report on this specific show. The ultimate flattery for somebody that loves the Post like I do and subscribes and considers them what they are. They were the issue that broke Watergate. They're the most influential publication, aside from the Times, in America. We appreciate everybody for supporting NEA Report all week during a crazy busy week. And now you're up to date. Have a great evening.